You're him. Olivia Reed's voice barely rose above a whisper, her professional composure crumbling as recognition dawned. You're Nate. And you're the woman who disappeared from my bed at dawn without a trace. Nathaniel West's eyes darkened as he closed his office door, shutting out the corporate world beyond. The woman I've been looking for since that night. Her heart hammered against her ribs as her dream job suddenly collided with her most intimate secret. If I had known who you really were, you wouldn't have left. His voice carried an edge of vulnerability beneath the power. Or you wouldn't have stayed in the first place. Olivia swallowed hard, her career and her heart balanced on the knife's edge of her answer. I don't know. But I do know I can't lose this job. I've worked my entire life for this position. And I can't stop thinking about you. His confession hung in the air between them. Not even when you're sitting in my boardroom presenting quarterly projections. Imagine walking into your dream job only to discover your new boss is the stranger from your most passionate one-night stand. Have you ever had a moment where your personal and professional lives collided in the worst possible way? When careers and hearts are on the line, which should you sacrifice? Would you risk everything you've worked for, or walk away from what might be your one chance at true connection? Welcome to Mr. Stevens Stories. If you've ever had to choose between your heart and your head, this story will resonate with you. Hit that like button and let's dive in, because to understand how these two lives became entangled, we need to go back to where it all began. 3 months earlier, the sophisticated ambience of the Atrium Bar provided the perfect backdrop for Olivia Reed's spectacular failure of a day. The rejection letter from Klein Industries, denying her the promotion she'd worked 18 months to secure, sat crumpled in her purse. Crystal chandeliers cast soft light over the mahogany bar where she sat alone, nursing an old-fashioned and her wounded pride. At 32, she'd hit another glass ceiling in the male-dominated world of sustainable materials science. That drink looks like it's carrying the weight of the world, came a deep voice from beside her. Olivia turned to find a stranger in a perfectly tailored charcoal suit sliding onto the adjacent barstool. His dark hair was just slightly disheveled, as if he'd run his hands through it repeatedly. But it was his eyes that caught her, intelligent, with subtle laugh lines that hinted at a life beyond boardrooms. The drink is fine, she replied. It's my career aspirations that are currently drowning. He smiled, not the practiced, gleaming smile of a man accustomed to getting his way, but something more genuine. I'm familiar with career drownings. Nate, he offered, extending his hand. Olivia. His palm was warm against hers, the handshake lingering a beat longer than necessary. And what brings you to a hotel bar on a Wednesday night, Nate? Escaping expectations. He signaled the bartender. Another for the lady, and I'll have the same. His attention returned fully to her. So tell me about these career aspirations. What field? Sustainable materials science. She waited for his eyes to glaze over as they usually did when she mentioned her passion. I develop biodegradable polymers that could potentially replace traditional plastics. To her surprise, he leaned forward, interest sparking. You're working on the petroleum alternative bonding problem? That's fascinating. The environmental applications are enormous. For the next hour, they talked, really talked, about molecular structures and environmental impact, about the politics of the plastics industry and the challenges of bringing sustainable alternatives to market. He understood her work at a level few outside her field did, asking insightful questions that pushed her thinking. How do you know so much about materials science? She finally asked. Something flickered across his expression, hesitation, perhaps. Let's just say I have varied interests. But enough about polymers. He shifted, his knee brushing against hers beneath the bar. Tell me something about Olivia that has nothing to do with science. The old-fashioned had mellowed her disappointment, or perhaps it was his undivided attention that made her feel suddenly lighter. I collect vintage vinyl records, but I don't own a record player. I just like the album art. He laughed, the sound rich and unguarded. That might be the most charmingly contradictory thing I've ever heard. Your turn, she challenged. Something about Nate that would surprise me. He considered for a moment, swirling the amber liquid in his glass. I have a 60-foot yacht that I take out exactly once a year, to scatter flowers on the anniversary of my grandfather's death. He taught me to sail when I was 10. The confession held such unexpected vulnerability that Olivia felt something shift between them, the conversation deepening beyond casual bar flirtation. He must have been important to you, she said softly. The only person who ever saw me, not what I could do or become. Nate's eyes held hers. Until tonight, perhaps. The chemistry between them was undeniable, building with each exchanged confidence. When he invited her to continue their conversation over dinner in the hotel's restaurant, she surprised herself by accepting. Over shared plates and a bottle of wine, they talked about everything and nothing, their childhoods, favorite books, places they'd traveled. He recited Pablo Neruda under his breath when she mentioned loving poetry, the Spanish flowing from his lips like music. You're not what I expected when I sat down at that bar, Olivia admitted as they lingered over dessert. What did you expect? Someone less. She searched for the right word, real. His smile turned rueful. I'm more real tonight than I've been in a long time. The night air was crisp as they walked along the waterfront afterward, the city lights reflecting on the dark water. When his fingers interlaced with hers, it felt like the most natural progression. And when he kissed her beneath the harbor lights, she didn't hesitate to kiss him back, the connection between them flaring hot and bright. Come up to my room, he murmured against her lips, then pulled back to meet her eyes. That came out wrong. I'm staying in the penthouse suite. The view of the sunrise over the water is incredible. We could order breakfast, talk until dawn. The invitation hung between them, an opening to something neither had anticipated when the night began. I'd like that, Olivia answered, surprising herself again. The penthouse was spectacular, all sleek lines and floor-to-ceiling windows, the city spread out beneath them like a carpet of stars. But it was Nate who held her attention, the way his guard dropped completely as he poured them each a glass of champagne, the gentle brush of his fingers as he tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. To unexpected connections, he toasted, his eyes never leaving hers. To being real, she returned. Their first touch was electric, hesitant fingers becoming bold caresses. Their kisses deepened from exploring to consuming, bodies pressing closer as layers fell away. In his bedroom, with the city lights creating patterns across bare skin, they discovered each other with wonder and heat, taking their time as if the night might stretch forever. Afterward, wrapped in his arms, Olivia felt a sense of rightness that both thrilled and terrified her. Stay, he whispered as she began to drift off. Watch the sunrise with me. She mumbled agreement, allowing sleep to claim her, safe in the warmth of his embrace. But as dawn approached, reality began to seep through the cracks of the perfect night. In the soft gray light, she studied his sleeping face, handsome, peaceful, and completely out of her league. The penthouse, the yacht, the ease with which he navigated this world of luxury, this wasn't her reality. Men like Nate didn't build futures with women like her. They had magnificent nights, beautiful memories, and then returned to lives of privilege where struggling scientists didn't fit. The magic of their connection would inevitably fade in daylight. Carefully extracting herself from his arms, Olivia dressed quietly, heart aching as she gathered her things. She considered leaving her number, writing a note, but what would she say? Thanks for the most meaningful one-night stand of my life. She was saving them both from an awkward goodbye, she told herself. Better a perfect memory than a disappointing morning after. With one last look at his sleeping form, she slipped out the door as the first rays of sunlight spilled across the horizon. Have you ever worked towards something for years, only to find it complicated by the past? Share your experience in the comments below. For the next 3 months, Olivia threw herself into her work with renewed determination. The rejection from Klein Industries had been a blessing in disguise, forcing her to aim higher. When Westwood Industries, the leading innovator in sustainable manufacturing, announced an opening for Director of Sustainable Innovation. She spent weeks perfecting her application, knowing it was the longest of long shots. The extensive interview process had been grueling, 3 rounds with various department heads and board members, technical presentations, strategy sessions. Not once had the company's reclusive CEO been mentioned as part of her direct reporting structure. When the offer came, with a salary nearly double her current one and the resources to bring her research to market, it felt like vindication for every setback she'd faced. If she occasionally found herself thinking about a night with a stranger named Nate, well, that was just a beautiful memory to revisit in private moments. Their connection had been real, but fleeting, a shooting star, brilliant but never meant to last. Meanwhile, across town in his penthouse office, Nathaniel West reviewed quarterly reports with growing impatience. At 36, he transformed his grandfather's manufacturing company into a global leader in sustainable innovation, yet the victory felt hollow. Since taking over as CEO 7 years ago, his life had narrowed to boardrooms and balance sheets, his identity reduced to his family name and corporate achievements. Except for one night 3 months ago, when he'd been simply Nate, a man connecting with a fascinating woman over old fashions and honest conversation. He'd searched for Olivia in the weeks following, but without a last name or any details beyond her field of work, the trail quickly went cold. She'd vanished like a dream, leaving him to wonder if their connection had been as profound as he'd believed or merely a product of his loneliness. The new director of sustainable innovation starts Monday, his assistant reminded him, placing another stack of reports on his desk. HR needs your final approval on the onboarding package. Nathaniel skimmed the document, noting only the impressive credentials. O. Reed, Ph.D., pioneering work in biodegradable polymers, published in top scientific journals, patents pending on 3 groundbreaking processes. Exactly what Westwood needed to maintain its competitive edge. Approved, he said, signing the document without registering the new director's full name. Schedule a department meeting for 11 on Monday. I want to personally welcome Dr. Reed to the team. On Monday morning, Olivia arrived at Westwood Industries' gleaming headquarters with equal parts excitement and nerves. The marble lobby soared 3 stories high, the company's commitment to sustainability evident in its living walls and solar glass. This was the pinnacle of her field, the place where her research could truly make a difference. She straightened her blazer, checked her reflection once more in her compact mirror, and approached the reception desk. Olivia Reed for my first day. I'm the new director of sustainable innovation. The receptionist smiled warmly. Welcome to Westwood, Ms. Reed. If you'll just wait a moment, someone will be down to escort you upstairs for orientation. The elevator doors opened, and Olivia's world tilted on its axis. The man walking toward her was achingly familiar, the same dark hair, the same intelligent eyes, but now framed by the unmistakable aura of corporate power. He wore authority like a second skin, his bespoke suit and confident stride marking him as someone accustomed to command. Yet beneath the polish, she recognized him instantly. Nate. Her Nate from that perfect night. Except he wasn't Nate at all. Welcome to Westwood. I'm Nathaniel West, CEO. His voice carried the same rich timbre that had whispered against her skin that night, now carefully controlled. You must be our new director of sustainable innovation. She took his outstretched hand, feeling electricity spark between them despite her best efforts to remain composed. Recognition dawned in his eyes, confusion, disbelief, and then certainty. Olivia Reed, she managed, her voice steadier than she felt. It's a pleasure to officially meet you, Mr. West. His eyes held hers a heartbeat too long, professional mask slipping momentarily before he recovered. My assistant will show you to your office. We have a department meeting at 11. We can catch up then. As she followed his assistant through the gleaming hallways, Olivia's mind raced with impossible choices. Her dream job had just become her worst nightmare. The stranger she'd shared her body and confidences with, the man she'd slipped away from without a word, was Nathaniel West, billionaire CEO of Westwood Industries and her direct supervisor. Sometimes we build walls to protect ourselves only to discover we've imprisoned our own happiness. If you're enjoying this story of unexpected connections, hit the like button and subscribe to Mr. Stevens' stories for more compelling narratives. The departmental meeting was an exquisite form of torture. Seated across the conference table from Nathaniel, Mr. West, she corrected mentally, Olivia felt his eyes on her whenever she spoke. She delivered her introductory presentation flawlessly, discussing her vision for the sustainability division with professional passion, but inside, she was screaming. MS. Reed brings expertise in biodegradable materials that align perfectly with our third-quarter objectives, he told the executive team, his voice betraying nothing of their shared history. I expect her innovations will accelerate our timeline significantly. As the meeting concluded and executives filed out, Nathaniel paused beside her chair. My office. 5 minutes. His low voice carried an undercurrent of tension that sent a shiver down her spine. His corner office commanded a spectacular view of the city skyline, the same skyline they'd admired from his penthouse balcony, champagne in hand, before their first kiss. Nathaniel closed the door and turned to her, the careful professional veneer slipping. You're him, Olivia said, her voice barely rising above a whisper, professional composure crumbling as the full weight of recognition hit her. You're Nate. And you're the woman who disappeared from my bed at dawn without a trace, he replied, eyes darkening as he leaned against his desk. The woman I've been looking for since that night. Her heart hammered against her ribs as her dream job suddenly collided with her most intimate secret. If I had known who you really were, you wouldn't have left. His voice carried an edge of vulnerability beneath the power. Or you wouldn't have stayed in the first place. Olivia swallowed hard, her career and her heart balanced on the knife's edge of her answer. I don't know. But I do know I can't lose this job. I've worked my entire life for this position. And I can't stop thinking about you. His confession hung in the air between them. Not even when you're sitting in my boardroom presenting quarterly projections. Silence stretched between them, heavy with unspoken complications. I didn't know, he continued more formally. When HR selected you from the candidates, I only saw credentials, not your photo. Your resume lists you as O. Reed. I didn't know either, Olivia replied. The interview process was with the board and department heads. I never met you. She took a steadying breath. I should have recognized your name, but... I introduced myself as Nate, he finished. Not Nathaniel West of Westwood Industries. I can find you a position reporting to someone else, he finally offered, running a hand through his dark hair, a gesture she remembered from their night together, when he'd been vulnerable, telling her about his father's impossible expectations. Or provide references if you'd prefer to look elsewhere. Olivia felt a flash of indignation. Is that what you want? For me to leave? What I want? He began, then stopped, his professional mask slipping further. What I want doesn't matter. That night was a mistake, she supplied, surprised by the sting his potential rejection carried. Unexpected, he corrected. And something I couldn't stop thinking about, especially when you disappeared without a trace. His gaze was direct now, the powerful CEO momentarily replaced by the man who had held her through the night. I looked for you, Olivia. The confession hung in the air between them, shifting the dynamic yet again. This job is my dream, she said finally. I've worked my entire career for this opportunity. I won't give it up. And I won't ask you to. His voice softened. You are the most qualified candidate by far. Your work on biodegradable polymers is revolutionary. The compliment warmed her despite her determination to keep this professional. Then we agree. What happened that night has no bearing on our working relationship. We're adults. We can separate the personal from the professional. Nathaniel nodded, his expression unreadable. Completely separate. When we try to compartmentalize our feelings, they often leak through the cracks in unexpected ways. Have you ever misread someone's intentions and created problems that weren't there? Let us know in the comments below. The following weeks became a masterclass in restraint. Olivia immersed herself in Westwood's sustainable materials division, impressing colleagues with her knowledge and vision. She arrived early, stayed late, and maintained scrupulously professional interactions with the CEO. If she occasionally caught him watching her during meetings with an intensity that had nothing to do with quarterly projections, she pretended not to notice. Nathaniel, for his part, maintained a careful distance that paradoxically felt more intimate than casual friendliness would have. He respected her boundaries absolutely, while somehow making her acutely aware of his presence in every room they shared. The biodegradable packaging initiative is ahead of schedule, she reported during a project update meeting. Early testing shows a 40% faster decomposition rate than our closest competitor, with comparable durability. Excellent work, Ms. Reed, Nathaniel replied, the formality of his address a reminder of the walls between them. What resources do you need to accelerate the timeline further? Their fingers brushed as she handed him the proposal, the brief contact sending awareness skating across her skin. She pulled back quickly, focusing on the documents before them. Additional lab staff and testing equipment, detailed on page 12. With proper funding, we could be market ready in 8 months rather than 14. He nodded, all business now. Approved. Keep me updated on your progress. In the lab, Olivia found sanctuary among molecules and compounds that followed predictable rules, unlike the complicated emotions that surfaced whenever Nathaniel was near. Her team respected her expertise, grateful for a director who understood both the science and the business implications of their work. Only in quiet moments did she allow herself to wonder what might have happened if she'd left her number that morning, if they'd met under different circumstances. For Nathaniel, the situation was proving increasingly difficult to navigate. He'd built his reputation on clear judgment and decisiveness, yet he found himself distracted by memories of a single night. The way Olivia's eyes had lit up when he recognized the significance of her research, the sound of her laughter, the feel of her skin against his. Now she was bringing the same passion to transforming Westwood's sustainability initiatives, her brilliance evident in every presentation and proposal. You look tired, sir, his assistant observed one evening, placing another stack of reports on his desk. Perhaps you should call it a night. I'm fine, Angela, he replied absently, his gaze drawn to the light still shining from the research and development wing. Olivia would be there, bent over samples or data, her dedication matching his own. The sustainability team is making remarkable progress, Angela continued, following his gaze. Dr. Reed is quite the asset. Yes, he agreed. Quite the asset. When Angela departed, Nathaniel sat motionless, torn between professional responsibility and personal desire. Finally, making a decision, he loosened his tie and headed for the lab. The R&D floor was deserted except for the conference room at the far end, where Olivia sat surrounded by presentation materials and prototype samples. Tomorrow was their first major investor pitch for the biodegradable packaging initiative, a crucial milestone for both her department and Westwood's sustainability commitment. She didn't hear Nathaniel enter, her focus complete as she refined her presentation points. He paused in the doorway, allowing himself a moment to observe her unguarded, the slight furrow between her brows as she concentrated, the way she absently tucked her hair behind her ear, the quiet determination in her posture. Stepping away briefly, he returned a few minutes later and placed a coffee cup beside her elbow. Olivia started, looking up in surprise. You take it with 1 sugar, he said quietly. I remembered. The simple gesture, that he'd retained this small detail about her preferences from their night together, cracked something in her carefully maintained composure. Why didn't you give me your card that night, she asked, the question that had lingered since her first day. If you wanted to see me again. Nathaniel leaned against the conference table, fatigue evident in the set of his shoulders. Because for one night, I was just Nate. Not the CEO, not the West heir, not responsible for thousands of employees and millions in shareholder value. Just a man connecting with a remarkable woman. His eyes met hers. I wanted you to want Nate, not Nathaniel West. I did want Nate, Olivia admitted softly. I left because I thought a man like you would have no interest in anything beyond one night. I didn't want to seem naive or clingy. The irony hung between them, both protecting themselves from rejection by creating exactly what they feared most. And now, he asked, the question layered with meaning. Olivia rose from her chair, closing the professional distance between them. Now I know Nathaniel West, the brilliant CEO who cares deeply about sustainable innovation and treats his employees with respect. She took a careful step closer. But I find I still think about Nate, who told me about sailing with his grandfather and quoted Pablo Neruda under the stars. They're the same person, he said, his voice rough with emotion. I know, she replied. That's the problem. Their first kiss in the conference room at midnight broke every rule of professional conduct, but felt like coming home. Their second kiss acknowledged the complicated path ahead, separate professional interactions by day, the freedom to explore their connection after hours. Their third sealed a promise that what was building between them would be given the chance it deserved. As they parted reluctantly to return to their presentation preparations, neither noticed the figure watching from the darkened hallway, Victor Harrington, VP of Operations and Nathaniel's chief rival for eventual chairmanship of the board. When forced to choose between what looks right and what feels right, the hardest path is often the most worthwhile. But running from problems often means running from solutions too. The investor presentation was a triumph. Olivia's scientific expertise combined with Nathaniel's business acumen created a compelling case for Westwood's biodegradable packaging initiative. Committed funding exceeded projections by 30%, with additional investors expressing interest. Westwood is positioning itself at the forefront of sustainable manufacturing, Nathaniel told the assembled investors. Thanks to Dr. Reed's groundbreaking research, we're not just reducing environmental impact, we're revolutionizing how products reach consumers. In the weeks that followed, Olivia and Nathaniel carefully navigated their evolving relationship. At work, they maintained professional distance and focused on their respective responsibilities. After hours, they rediscovered the connection that had sparked that first night, now deepened by shared goals and mutual respect. I never expected this, Olivia admitted one evening as they walked along the same waterfront where they'd first kissed 3 months earlier. I was so certain a man in your position would never be interested in something real with someone like me. Someone like you? Nathaniel raised an eyebrow. You mean brilliant, passionate, and completely unimpressed by my bank account? You're exactly what I've been looking for. They were building something precious, brick by careful brick. But the foundation was about to be tested. The first whispers began in the break room. Had anyone else noticed how the CEO always attended Dr. Reed's presentations personally? Wasn't it interesting that they both seemed to work late on the same evenings? The sustainability team's unprecedented budget approval raised eyebrows among longer-tenured departments. Victor Harrington cultivated these whispers carefully, adding strategic observations that transformed innocent coincidences into suggestive patterns. As a board meeting approached to discuss executive compensation and succession planning, he made his move. I've received some concerning reports about a potential conflict of interest, he announced during the closed-door session, Nathaniel temporarily absent for a call. It appears our CEO has developed a personal relationship with Dr. Reed from sustainability. Board members exchanged glances, corporate governance concerns immediately surfacing. Westwood has clear policies about supervisor-subordinate relationships, Harrington continued smoothly. Not to mention the appearance of favoritism in budget allocations. Dr. Reed's department received funding that other divisions were denied. By the time Nathaniel returned, the damage was done. The board chair, Eleanor Blackwood, requested a private meeting immediately following the session. You've put us in a difficult position, Nathaniel, she said directly. Your personal involvement with a direct report compromises both your judgment and the company's ethical standards. Dr. Reed's department received priority funding because her innovations will transform our product line, Nathaniel replied, maintaining his composure. The board approved those allocations based on projected returns. Nevertheless, the relationship creates an untenable situation. Eleanor's expression was sympathetic but firm. The board expects this to be resolved before our quarterly review. Either the reporting structure must change, or the relationship must end. That evening, Nathaniel arrived at Olivia's apartment with visible tension in every line of his body. She knew immediately something was wrong. Victor Harrington saw us that night in the conference room, he explained once they were seated. He's been building a case against us with the board. Olivia felt the blood drain from her face. They know about us. They know enough. Eleanor gave me an ultimatum, either change the reporting structure or end the relationship. I can transfer to another division, Olivia suggested immediately. Or report to someone else. Nathaniel shook his head. Your innovations are central to our sustainability strategy. Moving you would be perceived as punishment for something neither of us should apologize for. He paced the small living room. This is exactly why I never dated within the company. Corporate politics can poison everything it touches. A cold fear settled in Olivia's stomach. What are you saying? I'm saying we need to be strategic. Perhaps cool things between us until after the quarterly review. Give me time to restructure the department without it seeming reactive. Cool things between us, she repeated flatly. You mean pretend we're not involved? Just temporarily, he insisted, reaching for her hands. 3 weeks at most. Olivia pulled away, years of professional insecurity surging to the surface. Is that really the issue, Nathaniel? Or is this the convenient corporate excuse to end something that was becoming too complicated? The CEO and the scientist, it makes a nice story until reality intrudes. That's not fair, he said, expression hardening. I'm trying to protect both our careers. My career survived before you, and it will survive after you, she replied, hurt making her voice sharp. What I won't survive is being someone's secret, hidden away because I'm inconvenient to the corporate image. Their first real argument escalated quickly, old insecurities and fresh fears creating a perfect storm. When Olivia suggested that perhaps Harrington was right about conflicts of interest clouding judgment, Nathaniel left in frustrated anger, both of them too proud to bridge the sudden chasm between them. The following morning, an email arrived in Olivia's inbox, an invitation to interview with Westwood's chief competitor, Axion Industries. The timing was too perfect to be coincidental. Someone wanted her gone, and was offering a golden parachute to make it happen. When she arrived at work, a larger surprise awaited. Nathaniel had called an emergency department meeting to announce a restructuring. Effective immediately, all division heads would report to a newly appointed Chief Innovation Officer, Victor Harrington. This streamlined structure will allow me to focus on strategic initiatives while ensuring consistent oversight across departments, Nathaniel explained, his voice professionally neutral, eyes never quite meeting Olivia's. Mr. Harrington brings valuable experience in operations management to this role. The subtext was clear, problem solved. She no longer reported directly to Nathaniel, removing the ethical conflict. But the solution felt hollow, a corporate maneuver rather than an act of love. Victor lingered after the meeting, his smile not reaching his eyes. Dr. Reed, I look forward to working closely with you. Though I understand Axion has expressed interest in your talents as well. The implied threat was unmistakable, he knew about the interview offer, perhaps had orchestrated it himself. Olivia maintained her professional composure, but inside, certainty crystallized. She would not be a pawn in corporate power plays, not even for the job she dreamed of. That afternoon, she requested a meeting with Nathaniel, only to be told by his assistant that he was unavailable, in meetings off-site for the remainder of the day. Frustrated, she penned a resignation letter, effective immediately, and scheduled the Axion interview for the following morning. Nathaniel, meanwhile, was indeed off-site, but not in meetings. He was on his yacht, the one he'd told Olivia about that first night, sailing to his grandfather's favorite spot in the harbor. For the first time since taking over as CEO, he felt lost, uncertain of his path forward. You always said leadership wasn't about control, it was about clarity, he said aloud, scattering white roses on the water as he did each year. I could use some of your clarity now, Grandpa. As the flowers drifted on the current, Nathaniel's phone rang, his assistant, calling despite strict instructions not to disturb him. Sir, I apologize for the interruption, but Dr. Reed has resigned, effective immediately. She's cleared out her office and returned her security badge. The words hit him like a physical blow. What? When did this happen? Her resignation letter was submitted this afternoon after she requested a meeting with you and was told you were unavailable. Nathaniel closed his eyes, understanding dawning. She thought I was avoiding her. There's more, sir. Mr. Harrington is telling the board she's accepted a position with Axion Industries. He's suggesting we should be concerned about intellectual property. The pieces fell into place with sickening clarity. Victor's appointment, the sudden interest from Axion, it had never been about corporate governance or conflicts of interest. It was about removing Olivia from Westwood and undermining Nathaniel's leadership in the process. Where is she now? He demanded. Unknown, sir. But her interview with Axion is scheduled for 9 a.m. tomorrow. Nathaniel glanced at the setting sun, making a decision. Angela, I need you to prepare some documents for me. And find out where Victor is right now. I'm heading back to shore. If this story touched you, please subscribe to Mr. Stevens Stories for more powerful narratives about life's meaningful moments. Olivia sat in her apartment surrounded by half-packed boxes, uncertainty gnawing at her. The Axion interview represented a lateral move at best, but at least there she wouldn't have to navigate the minefield of personal and professional complications. Still, leaving Westwood felt like abandoning not just a job, but a vision she believed in deeply. A knock at her door startled her from her thoughts. When she opened it, Nathaniel stood in her hallway, slightly disheveled and smelling faintly of sea air. You resigned, he said without preamble. And you're interviewing with Axion tomorrow. Olivia crossed her arms. Apparently corporate news travels fast. Did your new chief innovation officer send you to verify I'm not stealing company secrets? Victor Harrington has been suspended pending an investigation. Nathaniel held her gaze steadily. It appears he's been sabotaging projects and feeding information to competitors for months, hoping to undermine my leadership and position himself for chairmanship. What does that have to do with me? Everything. He took a step closer. The restructuring was never about us. It was his condition for keeping silent about our relationship, a power play I was too blind to recognize because I was trying to protect you. Olivia's resolve wavered slightly. That still doesn't explain why you're here. I'm here because I made a mistake. Not in loving you, but in thinking I needed to choose between my personal happiness and professional integrity. He pulled a document from his coat pocket. This is my proposal for a departmental restructure, a real one this time. Sustainability becomes an independent division reporting directly to the board, not to me. You maintain complete autonomy while removing any conflict of interest. You want me to stay at Westwood, she said carefully. I want you in my life, Olivia. At Westwood, at Axion, or anywhere else you choose to bring your brilliant mind. But I won't hide what we have, and I won't ask you to be less than who you are, the remarkable woman who challenged me that first night at the bar and hasn't stopped challenging me since. What about the board? She asked, hope beginning to pierce through her hurt. I've called an emergency meeting for tomorrow morning. I'm presenting the restructuring plan, along with evidence of Victor's misconduct. He stepped closer. And I'm telling them that while I respect corporate governance, I won't pretend not to care for you to satisfy arbitrary rules. If that means I step down as CEO, so be it. Olivia stared at him in shock. You would give up Westwood? Your family legacy? My grandfather built Westwood to create something meaningful, not to be worshipped. He taught me that life without genuine connection isn't worth all the success in the world. Nathaniel took her hands gently. I was Nate with you that night because for once, I wasn't defined by my company or my name. You saw me, the real me. And I've been looking for you ever since. For the first time since their argument, Olivia allowed herself to truly hear him. I was scared, she admitted. Not of losing the job, but of believing this could be real. That someone like you could actually want someone like me for more than a convenient moment. Someone like you. He echoed her words with a slight smile. You mean brilliant, passionate, and completely unafraid to walk away from a billionaire when he's being an idiot? You're exactly what I need. Their reconciliation kiss held promise rather than desperation, an acknowledgement that what they were building would require work and courage from both of them. The board meeting the following morning was tense but productive. With evidence of Victor's sabotage presented, his suspension became termination. Olivia's resignation was rescinded, and a restructuring plan approved with minor modifications. While some board members expressed concerns about the relationship's appearance, Eleanor Blackwood ultimately prevailed with unexpected support. Westwood has always claimed to value innovation and authenticity, she stated firmly. Perhaps it's time our corporate policies reflected those values, rather than clinging to outdated norms that drive away talent. 6 months later, Olivia stood on the deck of Nathaniel's yacht, watching the sunset paint the harbor in shades of gold and crimson. Her sustainability division had just launched Westwood's revolutionary biodegradable packaging line to rave industry reviews. Nathaniel had stepped back from day-to-day operations to focus on strategic vision and mentoring future leadership, reducing the corporate governance concerns while allowing their relationship to flourish openly. Penny, for your thoughts, he asked, slipping his arms around her waist from behind. I was thinking about that night at the bar, she replied, leaning back against his chest. How close we came to never having this because we were both so busy protecting ourselves from imagined rejection. Sometimes the universe has to work overtime to get stubborn people where they need to be, he said, brushing his lips against her temple. Even if it means making your one-night stand turn out to be your boss. Olivia laughed, turning in his arms to face him. I prefer to think of you as the man who quoted Pablo Neruda to me under the stars. The CEO thing is just a detail. A rather significant detail, according to Forbes, he teased. Not to me. She touched his face gently. To me, you're still just Nate. The man I'm in love with. His expression softened as he pulled her closer. And you're still the brilliant scientist who saw past my name to who I really am. The woman I fall more in love with every day. As the last light faded from the sky, they stood together on the deck, no longer hiding from what they'd found in each other, a connection that transcended professional boundaries and personal fears, proving that sometimes the most unexpected beginnings lead to the most extraordinary journeys. Share this story with someone who needs to remember that sometimes our biggest challenges lead to our greatest happiness. And remember, whether in love or in life, authentic connections are always worth the risk.